The doorbell rang at exactly 7 p.m., cutting through the quiet hum of the suburban Nashville evening like a jolt of electricity. Jake Harlan froze in the hallway, his hand hovering over the knob, heart pounding harder than it had any right to. It had been 3 years since he'd opened this door for anyone but pizza delivery or his daughter's school friends. Tonight was different. Tonight was a blind date, his first in forever, and he wasn't sure he was ready. But he twisted the knob anyway. Standing on the porch under the soft glow of the string lights he'd hung last summer was a woman with warm brown eyes, curly auburn hair pulled into a loose ponytail, and a nervous smile that made her dimples show. She wore a simple navy dress that hugged her figure just right, and in her hand was a small bouquet of wildflowers. "Hi," she said softly, her voice carrying a faint southern lilt. "You must be Jake. I'm Emily." Jake managed a grin, stepping aside to let her in. "Yeah, that's me. Come on in. You look, wow, beautiful." She blushed, handing him the flowers. "These are for you. Or, well, for the house." "I wasn't sure." He took them, their fingers brushing for a second, sending an unexpected spark up his arm. It felt good. Too good. He hadn't felt that in years. But then Emily leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper as she glanced over her shoulder toward the driveway. "Jake, my kids are in the car." He froze. Completely. The smile slipped from his face, his body going rigid as if someone had hit pause on his life. Kids. In the car. This was supposed to be a blind date. Dinner at a quiet Italian place downtown, maybe a walk afterward. No one had mentioned kids. Not in the app profile. Not in their weeks of texting. Emily's eyes searched his, pleading. "I know this is crazy. I know I should have told you up front. But, please, just hear me out." To understand why those words hit Jake like a freight train, we have to go back. Way back. Jake Harlan was 38 years old, a high school history teacher and varsity football coach at Franklin High in Williamson County, just south of Nashville, Tennessee. He lived in a modest 3-bedroom ranch house on a quiet cul-de-sac in Brentwood, the kind of neighborhood where kids rode bikes until the streetlights came on and everyone waved at each other during evening walks. But Jake's life hadn't always been this quiet. 5 years earlier, he'd had it all, or what felt like all. A beautiful wife named Sarah, who'd been his high school sweetheart. They'd met at a bonfire party senior year, married right after college, and welcomed their daughter, Lily, when Jake was 28. Sarah was a pediatric nurse, full of life and laughter, the kind of mom who baked cookies for the whole team after games and turned every ordinary day into an adventure. Then, one rainy Tuesday in April, everything shattered. Sarah was driving home from her shift when a drunk driver ran a red light. She didn't make it. Jake got the call while he was grading papers in his classroom. Lily was only 4. The years that followed were a blur of grief. Jake threw himself into raising Lily. Soccer practices, dance recitals, bedtime stories, parent-teacher conferences where he sat alone on the tiny chairs. Friends tried to set him up, but he always said no. Not ready, he'd tell them. Lily comes first. Lily was now 9, a bright, curly-haired spitfire with her mother's green eyes and Jake's stubborn streak. She loved books, horses, and drawing elaborate maps of imaginary worlds. She still asked about mommy sometimes, in quiet moments, and Jake always answered honestly, holding her while she cried if she needed to. Dating. It felt like betrayal, like moving on too soon. But lately, Lily had started noticing. "Daddy, you smile more when you text that lady," she'd said one night, peeking over his shoulder at his phone. "Is she nice?" Her name was Emily Reynolds, a 36-year-old graphic designer who'd moved to Nashville from Atlanta 2 years ago. They'd matched on a dating app specifically for single parents. Wait, had it been for single parents? Jake thought back. Actually, no, it was just a regular app. Emily's profile had said, "Mom of 2 amazing kiddos," but Jake had skimmed past that, focused on her smile and the way she talked about loving hiking and live music. They'd texted for weeks, laughed about bad country songs, shared stories about work stress, even talked about their favorite spots on Natchez Trace Parkway. She seemed kind, funny, real. When she suggested meeting for dinner, Jake's sister, Megan, who lived nearby and often babysat Lily, had encouraged him. "You deserve this, Jake. Lily will be fine with me." So here they were, or here he was, staring at Emily like she'd grown a second head. "Kids," he finally whispered back, his voice hoarse. "As in, right now. In your car." Emily nodded, biting her lip. "Yeah, Ava's 7 and Noah's 5. My sitter canceled last minute. Some family emergency, and I didn't want to cancel on you after all this buildup. I thought, maybe we could order pizza here instead. If that's okay, I can send them home with my neighbor if it's too much, but they're excited to meet Lily." I mentioned her, and Jake's mind raced. This was not the plan. He wasn't ready for this. For instant family introductions, for the chaos of 3 kids in his house when he'd spent years perfecting the rhythm of just 2. But then he looked past Emily to the driveway. In the backseat of her silver minivan, 2 small faces pressed against the window. A little girl with braids waving shyly, a boy with messy blonde hair making a funny face. They looked normal, excited, hopeful, and something in Jake's chest cracked open. "Come in," he said finally, stepping back. "All of you." Emily's face lit up with relief. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, Lily's upstairs finishing homework. She'll be thrilled. She's been asking if you have kids she could play with." As Emily waved to the car, the doors flew open and 2 kids tumbled out, backpacks swinging. Ava was tall for 7, with her mom's curly hair, wearing a purple unicorn shirt. Noah was all energy, gap-toothed grin, clutching a toy dinosaur. "Hi, Mr. Jake," Ava called politely. "Is this Lily's house?" Noah asked, already bounding up the steps. Jake laughed despite himself. "It sure is. Come on in, guys." Shoes off by the door, okay. The evening that followed was nothing like Jake had imagined, and everything he didn't know he needed. Lily came downstairs, eyes wide at the sudden invasion. But within minutes, the 3 kids were sprawled on the living room floor building a blanket fort while arguing over who got to be the dragon. Emily helped Jake order pizza, 2 larges, 1 pepperoni, 1 cheese for the picky eaters, and they sat at the kitchen table, watching the chaos unfold. "I'm so sorry," Emily said quietly as they waited for delivery. "I should have been up front. It's just, dating as a single mom is hard. Guys see 2 kids, and run. Or they pretend they're cool with it until the first meltdown, then ghost." Jake nodded slowly. "I get it. More than you know." He told her about Sarah. About the accident. About how some days he still expected to hear her key in the door. Emily reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "I'm sorry. That must have been devastating. Lily's lucky to have you. Some days I feel like I'm barely holding it together," he admitted. "But she's my world." The pizza arrived, and dinner was loud and messy. Sauce on shirts, debates over crust versus no crust, Noah telling endless knock-knock jokes. But it felt alive. The house hadn't been this full of laughter since before. After eating, the kids begged for a movie. Jake put on Moana, and soon all 3 were snuggled on the couch under blankets, eyes glued to the screen. Emily and Jake sat on opposite ends, occasionally exchanging glances that lingered a little too long. When the credits rolled, it was past bedtime. Emily gathered her crew. "Time to go, monkeys." Groans all around. "Can we come back?" Ava asked Jake directly. He looked at Emily, who was watching him carefully. "Yeah," he said, "anytime." As he walked them to the car, Lily hugged Ava and Noah goodbye like old friends. Emily lingered by the driver's door. "This was better than any fancy dinner," she said softly. Jake smiled. "Yeah, it really was." She leaned in, kissing his cheek. "Text me when you get inside." "Definitely." He watched them drive away, then turned to Lily, who was grinning ear to ear. "Daddy, I like them. Especially Noah. He's funny. Can Emily be your girlfriend?" Jake laughed, scooping her up for a piggyback ride inside. "Slow down, kiddo." "But, maybe." That night marked the beginning. Over the next months, Jake and Emily took things slow, but not too slow. The kids became the center of it all. Playdates turned into joint outings, trips to the Nashville Zoo, picnics at Percy Warner Park, bowling on rainy Saturdays. But it wasn't all smooth. The first big challenge came about 2 months in, when Noah had a full-blown meltdown at Chuck E. Cheese over losing tickets. He screamed, kicked, threw tokens. Emily handled it calmly, taking him outside to breathe, but Jake saw the exhaustion in her eyes afterward. Later, in the car, she apologized. He's usually better, but he's been struggling since his dad left. Deployment turned permanent absence. Jake learned then that Emily's ex, a Marine, had bailed after Noah was born, sending sporadic checks but no visits. She'd raised them alone, working freelance from home. "I don't need a savior," she told Jake one night over coffee after the kids were asleep at her place. "But I could use a partner." Jake nodded. "I'm scared too. What if I mess this up? What if Lily gets attached and it doesn't work?" But they kept going. Another hurdle. Blending holidays. Thanksgiving was tense. Jake's parents, still grieving Sarah, were polite but distant with Emily. Lily sensed it, acting out. Emily's mom, visiting from Georgia, grilled Jake about his intentions. Christmas was better. Everyone under one roof at Jake's, decorating the tree while singing off-key to old country tunes. Noah hung the star, Ava helped bake cookies, Lily directed the whole operation like a tiny general. Spring brought school events. Jake coached Lily's soccer team, Ava joined too. Watching Emily cheer from the sidelines, hair in a messy bun, yelling encouragement, Jake realized he was falling hard. But the biggest test came in May. Emily got a big freelance contract, designing branding for a new Nashville music venue. It required long hours, travel to meetings. Her usual backup sitter flaked. She was drowning. One night, she called Jake crying. "I might have to turn it down. I can't do this alone." "You don't have to," he said. "Move in with us." It was impulsive, huge, but it felt right. She hesitated. "Are you sure? The kids, everything. Lily already calls your place the other house. Let's make it one." They did. Slowly, Emily and the kids moved in over summer break. There were adjustments, arguments over chore charts, tears when Noah missed his old room, Lily feeling crowded sharing space. But there were triumphs too. Family game nights that lasted until midnight. Jake teaching Noah to throw a football. Emily helping Lily with art projects. Quiet mornings where Jake made pancakes for 5 instead of 2. One evening in August, they all piled into the minivan for a drive to Arrington Vineyards. Spread out on a blanket, watching the sunset, the kids chasing fireflies. Emily leaned against Jake. "I never thought I'd have this again. A family that feels whole." He kissed her temple. "Me neither." Later that fall, Jake proposed. Not with a flashy gesture, but on their porch, the same spot where she'd whispered those life-changing words. He got down on one knee while the kids watched from the window, giggling. She said yes. Cheers everywhere. Their wedding was small, backyard ceremony with fairy lights and barbecue. Lily was flower girl, Ava and Noah ring bearers. Jake's parents danced with Emily's mom. Healing in motion. Years later, looking back, Jake would always say that moment, the freeze when Emily whispered about her kids in the car, was the best thing that ever happened to him. Because love isn't always neat or planned. Sometimes it shows up unannounced, with juice boxes and car seats and extra laundry. Sometimes it whispers through a cracked open door, asking if there's room for more. And when you say yes, even when you're terrified, you find that broken hearts have endless capacity to expand. Family isn't just blood, it's the people who choose to stay, to build, to love through the mess. It's opening the door, unfreezing, and letting them in. Forever.